Hi, I'm Liz.
And I'm Rhea.
Welcome to Karma's My Bitch, a podcast about
sex,
love,
magic,
desire,
purpose,
bliss,
and how life isn't simply the stories we tell ourselves.
Anybody who has lived in 3D, had a family in 3D, I don't think I can say that there is anyone I know who hasn't had some form of dysfunction in their family unit.
Well, it's so interesting, isn't it? Because we've never had an episode on family before. For
Never?
all the episodes we've had, I don't think we've had an episode on family. We've spoken a lot about our parents in the books. We've spoken a lot about our childhoods in the books. But we've never really had an episode on family in the very sense of family. I mean, obviously, we've had it in the sense of relationships and starting a family, but not as in we're in a family.
Oh, interesting. But come to think of it, you're right. Not that I would doubt you because you edit, so you'd be aware of that. That's really interesting. I mean,
why? Why is it now in Bliss that we speak about family?
That's a really good question. I didn't even ask that when we were doing this, other than the fact that it's just time. Because while we're giving this in the context of Bliss, we are really going to see the whole fabric and concept of family ripped apart in 2026.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
I know, super fun. Because as we've discussed, 5D is wholly relational. So every relationship that we've ever had has been up for examination as we go through our karmic undoing process, as we come into our full power, which is what magic, reflects back to us. And obviously when we're entering bliss or early stages of bliss, our power is front and center. And often we have derived our power from our family.
Mm-hmm.
It's been our power source as much as it's stripped us of our power. So
because you've always got someone to go home to, got someone to turn to for help. You know who you are as defined by your surname, all those kind of things.
Yeah, it's such a firm identity for us. But as we understand, it can sometimes, especially depending on our family dynamic, strip us of our divine identity.
Well, it's always made me wonder because oftentimes you don't necessarily, when you see people in relationship, they tend to come from similar families. Mm-hmm. Even if they come from different nationalities, the family structure is quite similar. But actually, that's not always the case. Mm. And then how does that work? Would you really not want to be with the person you're meant to be with because you came from two very different families? Like that, how sad is that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, for me, that was definitely a non-issue or a non-starter because my parents are from different countries, different ethnicities. Absolutely nothing about them were similar at all.
I mean, everything about my parents is similar. They're both Palestinian. They both moved. They both Christian. They both, all the things that they define themselves as separately within their own separate families, they were the same when they met each other. And in Arabic culture, there is that whole idea of coming from a good family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's very much a definition.
Yeah.
And I remember every time I traveled to the Middle East, you're defined by your family name.
Oh, very much. Very much. And that's a really big deal. And less so where where my parents come from. And as an American, it's really a non-issue. But family has always been a core. Mm. It's always been a core concept. And one of the reasons it's taken a really long time for us to really look at it and stare at it is because it really shapes our internal workings. It influences us that greatly. And we have been unable to stare at it because we have to really be able to get that deep before we can allow it to sort of unravel enough that we can bring it back together. Because we're not saying, we're not here to say like, oh, family sucks. The concept of family is going to go away in 5D. But anything that is born of 3D, anything that has contributed to or been a result of separation or has been warped or manipulated or exploited within separation, because as we know, separation has definitely hurt our family units and how we connect to one another. And so we're having to see, and the reason it's 2026 is because we're really having to see how we connect to other people. Because if you think about it, I know it's going to sound super cheesy, but we are family, right? The whole concept of we are family. It's like what really connects us all. And so little by little, we've had to kind of see all that stripped away and challenged. But it's that family unit that's going to really drive this home in a way that's going to feel uncomfortable.
Mm.
if we haven't healed a lot of our issues, which the karmic undoing process is certainly supposed to help.
Well, it's funny because when I was in my karmic undoing process, I really struggled a lot with my family. But actually now I find that I respect them in a very different way. They offer a very different viewpoint that tends to calm me. And I see their wisdom where I didn't necessarily see it before.
Yeah.
But my relationship to my family can sometimes be quite toxic because some of the old patterns that I held on to, I'm working out of.
Yes.
I guess it's the natural evolution. That's the wrong word because of growth and evolution. It's the natural byproduct of living in a different country to your family, as you know. You know?
Absolutely.
So it comes with it certain things.
Yeah. And we're just at a point, and we really are reaching a point where no unit in which we exist in or thrive in or live in can hold karma. So, you know, we have our individual karma, Liz and Rhea, we have our own karmic story, our own karma. But outside of that, every unit will hold its karma. So every individual within a unit, if they have karma, they're also going to carry or play into the collective karma.
So a family can have collective karma, like a family karma.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So sometimes, you know, I'm going to I can say this, but this is going to be super general and generic. But if you've ever kind of sort of seen a family really struggle, and it looks like it's, you know, whatever that struggle is affecting every single member in different ways. It's not really just that they have their individual karma. There's something with the family. And they're there to work it out. What helps a family as they're doing this is consciousness. The parents really do hold that. The kids are there to support, but if you have collective karma within the family, or if a unit holds karma, it's the parents that are really holding it, and it's the kids that are there to help support that, as in, we're going to help bring this to the fore so we can all consciously work through and burn it out. But if you have unconscious parents, as in parents who are very good at ignoring it, or, you know, it makes it harder for the younger generation. And so the younger generation's either going to rebel, fight back, or just leave, because it's a lot easier that way. Because you can't work with ignorance.
No. So that's so interesting.
So play that out. So if you play that out from the family unit to within communities, within towns, within countries, etc., you can sort of see how that works.
I mean, I can see it.
Yeah.
But like, because dysfunctional relationships are kind of the name of the karmic game, right?
Yes.
So all dysfunction points point to the karma. It points to the core fear. And you're going to have to work through it within the family unit as well as everywhere else. It just is the way that it is.
Yeah.
And like, there are points when one maybe person is working through something and the other one isn't, and they tend to diverge.
Yes. Very much.
Or like, and you see that a lot. Also, the other thing I feel like I'm seeing of late is that one person working through their karma, but then they no longer fit their partner. Mm-hmm. So then again, that family unit starts to almost crumble in a way, or become like
it gets
a sticking
stretched.
point. Yeah.
And
it's really hard to bear witness to. And it really can make you question, like, what's the point of having children? What's the point of even being born in the cycle of life?
Yeah.
But then I think back to that episode that we had about, I remember it was after a very depressing episode, and it was about children.
Children are expression of hope.
So children are expression of hope. So actually, it's not necessarily about why we're bringing them into this world. It's about we're bringing them into the world that we know can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said.
And we've been talking about this a lot, and we talked about it in the Magic series, and we talked about it in the last episode about potential, and about how actually in the last episode we were saying how seeing someone's potential and believing in that potential is what realizes that potential. And it's not that whole idea of, oh, don't fall in love with potential kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's the same kind of thing on a bigger scale.
Well,
we're seeing the potential for the world.
Yeah, and you can recognize potential and also see reality. You know, as we discussed, you can hold two truths at the same time. One does not negate the other, because often one that we want to hold to is the one that sort of feeds our karmic story. It's the one that kind of assures us that, like, we're not wrong, etc. I mean, we don't want to go off on that tangent because it's just like whatever.
No, but what you're saying is we can still acknowledge that this person is flawed. Mm-hmm. But they also have great potential. This world is flawed, but it also has great potential.
Great potential. And that's what consciousness shows us, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. Because you can see past what it currently is expressing as, but also what it could be and that's what compassion does as well. The last episode was actually fucking good for those reasons.
So
but that's
proud of
because we're not aiming for perfection. We're aiming for wholeness.
Exactly.
We want to see the flaws as well as see the potential, because then that allows for all the parts to come back together, and that's what neutralizes the separation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because if we don't choose to recognize the flaws, if we cannot at least acknowledge to some degree how much that family concept in separation has hurt us, how much it has narrowed our experiences, how much it has stemmed our power, not all the time, not every single lifetime, but enough that we do have to see all the parts of it that have fed and perpetuated its dysfunction get worked out, so that future generations don't keep playing into it. And again, it doesn't mean that the concept of family is gone or will be gone, because there's something so beautiful about that, about parents and children and support. But we've lost that because we haven't been able to confront our karma.
I guess I remember you saying a while ago that birth rates were going to continue to be quite low. And I assume we're also going to be seeing family units continue to crumble as well, as we really have to confront how damaged our ideas of relationships and connections are, so that we don't bring them into the next generation, so that we do allow for that potential, because we let our future children not be touched by that crap.
Absolutely. Because these souls aren't here for it. They're here more for the magic, not even so much the magic, but the bliss experience, because they are not going to come in and tolerate their power being stemmed. So for them, if you think about it from the bliss perspective, at the core of which is our divine power. I feel like there's a bazillion episodes on that, or at least in our book. So it's not so much about, who marries who, or like you had talked about before, like what's the family name and is it a good family and stuff. It's really going to be how healed are the people who come together for the purposes of bringing a soul through so that it can thrive and leave its imprint on the world.
And is it even for people because obviously there are families who don't choose to have children. Does that still count?
Absolutely. Because if those families come together, so say those individuals come together and they're like, you know what, you're my person. We got this. Like you and me against the world. It's cool. Well, it's not you and me against the world if we're just going to keep throwing our karma out there. It's going to be
and also,
you
who knows,
and
they might
me.
have like stepchildren. They might have other family, because you're bringing two families together. Even if you don't have children, you might still have siblings and parents and
the concept is meant to be you and me for the world.
That's really lovely.
But it is. It's you and me for the world. As in, I'm cemented in my purpose. You're cemented in your purpose. Maybe we're not super clear about how that's going to play out. That's part of the adventure of it all. Yeah. But we're going to serve. And even if it means that we're not bringing children through, totally fine. It doesn't mean we're not our own family. It doesn't mean that our close friends who are also really like thriving and want to contribute to the world aren't somehow a part of that family that we form. So again, these are all different elements that are going to come together and help us redefine and understand family in a whole new way, which is really, really nice.
Yeah, that's nice. It makes it bigger.
It does.
But
it
then
really does.
How does bliss and then happen? What happens if some people are on the path to bliss, like we've discussed before, and some are not? How does that work?
I think when it comes to the family unit, it has to do with how it manages dysfunction. Because happy vibrates high enough that it's like, I can be around this person, like whatever. They're not going to kill my vibe. Like if I have to go to this like family dinner, I see this person maybe once a year, I'll get through it. Yeah, because I'm just going to bring all my energy for it. But bliss, interestingly, because as we said, at its core, it's divine power. It's going to run through everything that we're connected to so that it can impact that relationship.
So
which
you're
sounds
really lucky
almost karmic. But
it sounds cool. It just sounds as if like you get to be in a family with someone who's on the path to bliss. You get a little bit more of a blissful life.
It's not so much that like it rubs off on them, but it's going to like, I think the word that they want to use is inspire.
Okay.
So if you think about like, so say you have these dysfunctional siblings, right? Either they live in different countries or whatever. Maybe one of them's a narcissist. So it's just a little difficult to stomach being around them, but you kind of have to for various reasons. Now, in a karmic relationship, so say one or both are kind of going through their karmic patterns and growth and evolution, right? Karma will sever that relationship so that the person can restore their power. I find this relationship and interacting with this person so draining, so difficult that I think we're just going to not be in touch for a while. But bliss, so once all that's done, bliss is going to say, you know what? I'm going to know you. And every time we get together, I'm going to make sure, and not because I'm happy and I'm just going to be happy no matter what. Somehow when we interact, we're going to have a good time. So you can't bring a person into your bliss vibration, but what you can do is you can vibrate that bliss out enough that, as you said, and as you've said before, it will neutralize that dynamic. So we don't have that up and down. Because you say that love neutralizes things. But a lot of people may not really be able to get there. Because maybe they just can't draw from that well, right? Or whatever. Now, when you're in bliss, you're not concerned about that. You're not thinking, you're not trying. Because karma is kind of have you like managing things, right? But in bliss, you're really just thinking, I'm going to be seeing this person semi-regularly because whatever, for whatever reason.
I'm going to make my life easy by finding a way that we can get on with each other.
Yeah, but I don't even have to think about it. I'm just going to be fully present in my power. And somehow that's going to shift this dynamic because I am unwavering. But I'm not like, ooh, you can't move me. And like, you know what I mean? Not in that defensive posturing way.
No, it's just like I'm always, cool.
Yeah, exactly. So it takes that happy, but it moves it through a bit further, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
We can't end on kind of, Rhea.
So basically just families will get bigger and better.
They'll definitely get better. I don't know about bigger because just like the birth rates are falling, so will the size of families.
No, I didn't mean bigger like that. I meant the idea of bigger, like as in it will include my friends and my cousins.
It will be less about blood ties in many ways. Because blood ties, they carry the karma, they carry a lot within that DNA. So sometimes we can't work with that. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. But it's really going to see a very expanded notion of family. And it's going to happen so organically, we're almost going to be unaware of it. Because it's going to, in many ways, it might even seem reactive. Oh, things are just a certain way, this is how I'm going to do it. Like rents are so high, we're all just going to kind of cohabitate. But it's not quite that, to be able to be really compatible with people, especially from a conscious place, and this, it takes a lot, doesn't it? When we think about all of your relationships with family and friends, like you said, like when you're in your karma, it's impossible really to connect to people because everything is really about that story. But once you're really in a conscious place, you're like, okay, well, you're going to have to somehow meet that consciousness or meet me at a point of love or somewhere. So that way we can really find some harmony. Because remember, harmony is one of the pillars of 5D. We call
hallmarks,
it that.
It's just
hallmarks. There we go.
This episode is brought to you by Karma Magic Bliss. For more information, resources, and links to our books, check out our website, karmamagicbliss.com, and Karma Magic Bliss across all socials.
And if you liked what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a review.